Hi everyone, and welcome back to my studio. In this little lesson, we're going to be painting this reference photo I have of these beautiful poppies. We're going to be using the wedge tool again and palette knife. And we're going to be creating a lot of fun texture using this Liquitex acrylic gel medium with our color. And it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to create a lot of texture and a lot of motion with this sort of abstract floral landscape. So I look forward to teaching you. I hope you stick around and watch this video. I'm going to put a little bit of this Liquitex gesso down just to kind of prep my canvas. And I'm going to use a little bit of this pink. And this is just Liquitex Basic Rose Pink. And all right, so now that that's dry, I'm going to just take a little, I can use a little burnt sienna, doesn't really matter. I'm just looking at my reference photo and I want to keep this painting kind of just really simple. There's a little mountain range in the background, so I can kind of, you know, mark off sort of a little mountain range there. You can, well, I'm going to paint over that, so I don't know why I'm so worried about that shape. And then sort of mark out a mountain range, and then you've got, you know, sort of a little horizon line and a little other kind of tree area here. So just so you have kind of an idea of where things are going. And now we can start working. So I've got, I'm going to start by getting in kind of a real faint mountain color and sky. So there's sort of a gray, I've got this blue-gray from Liquitex here. And for the sky, it's sort of a gray color sky. And because we have so much color in the flowers, you could go with more of a blue sky. But I think because we got so much color, I want to keep the rest of the painting almost a little more neutral. So I'm mixing up a little bit of that. And I'm going to get my wedge tool and just put down some of those marks nice and loose for the sky. And I don't even mind some of that pink showing through, because, you know, that's kind of the abstract kind of effect, to have some of that. And if you don't like it later, it really still bugs you, you know, we can get rid of it. But leave a bit of it in the beginning so that later, you know, you have the option at least to get rid of it. Now for the mountain range, I'm going to use a little bit of the cobalt blue that I got out, and I used a little bit of this cad red, and I'll mix a little bit of that to make a light kind of purple color for the mountains. Little cobalt, little cad red medium, or if you have some, you know, whatever red you've got that's sort of on the darker tone for the poppies. I'm going to mix a little bit of gray into that pile just so that it kind of goes with the sky. It's almost like we're just kind of adding a little, you know, gradation in the background. I want it to stay simple, the background. So just kind of working that in there, and you see I'm gonna leave some of that pink. I really think that's kind of fun. And now we got our mountain range in there, and I'm just wiping off this palette knife here, spatula. And now I'm going to make, there's a dark green tree line there. It's a little smaller, so you can, if you feel more comfortable switching to your palette knife, you can. I'm going to get some of this sap green, and I'm going to mix that right into the whatever's left of that grayish color. Maybe put a little bit of this this blue in there. And that blue is light blue permanent from Liquitex Basics. I'll also try to take the time and add those links. Sometimes I forget, so if I do, just remind me. Put the links in, and I will put them in. So I'll just put a little bit of that little hill that's in there. Like so, and maybe get a little bit more of that grayish kind of white and just sort of lighten it up in some areas. Okay, now we need to set the backdrop for the poppies. So in the reference photo, there's a real pale yellowy green color. So I'll add a little bit of this green here. And again, this is one of those really inexpensive colors from Liquitex. It's light olive green, which it's kind of olive green, and I'll put a little bit of that in. And I also want it to be kind of, almost borderline boring compared to what we're going to add those poppies in. And you'll notice I'm really leaving that kind of pink throughout the painting. You can start with a light orange, or, sometimes like a bright red. Just whatever. I just kind of thought this would look good. And kind of in a landscape, the lighter pink will look further away than the bright red poppies. So now we've got sort of this is like almost a quick roughed in underpaint that we got going here. And I'll kind of just mess it up a little. Okay, so, all right, so now I'm going to, I want to create start adding thicker paint, but before I do that, I'm going to just sort of look at, okay, how do I want those poppies to really show up and really pop from the background? So I think what I want to do is I'm going to create a thin layer first of the green, and then I'll add the red. So I'm going to take some of this sap green, and I'm going to make a few marks to get that real dark backdrop in there first. And also, I'll leave a little bit of that pink showing through. Okay, so that's just a basic kind of coating. And I'm going to quickly reload my green. And I'm using this Utrecht acrylic artist colors brand, so it's also not using the highest quality. There's still decent quality paint, but I'm not spending like all my golden paint on this type of like super kind of loose abstract painting. So I'm going to now start mixing a little bit of heavier piles of paint. So I'm going to use this throwaway, palette paper, and let's see, I'm trying to get it in the picture here for you. So you take a scoop of that, stuff out, and maybe you separate it so you get a couple different, you want to make a few different piles of it. And we'll start with that, and then we'll see what we need to do. So I've got out the gel. That's heavy gel gloss medium. I'm going to take some of the red that I want to really, look at how fun that is. You get this super thick impasto looking paint. And I'll get got this other red. I think it's like I think that one is, I never can say it right, but it's like naphthol red or something. I was just trying to use it because I never use it, and I thought, I'm doing these big blobs of red poppy. It doesn't really matter too much what I got. I just want to make sure I've got enough of it ready to go. And then I'm going to mix, just clean your palette knife because you don't want to mix greens with it. So now we're going to need some juicy green. So let's get some sap in there make a nice thick puddle of super thick paint with that gloss medium. So look at how fun that is. It looks like icing. And that's kind of what we're doing. We're going to apply it like icing. So now I'm going to make another shade of green. And so I'll get some of that. I'm trying to keep it real simple here, so I'll just use some of that olive green for some of the lighter greens in the picture. And then you could always add some of that blue and take some of that gel and mix up some cooler greens. And then we'll start with that, and I've got black on my, black on there that I'm going to use for the centers, but I'll use my palette knife for that. And let's just see what we can do. This is a small canvas, and I've only been really practicing this wedge tool with, a larger canvas, but let's see what we got. So in the reference photo, there's some lighter and darker, so maybe I've got to mix up a little bit of white. That has some other color, so let's get that out of there and just clean my knife off again. I'll get some of that red and just mix up a little lighter. It's just slowly mixing your white. I see how I'm taking it from the side and mixing it in, so I'm not just right away adding all that white. And you can add a little, I've got a little yellow oxide out there, so I'll add that in there too. Just to kind of warm it up a little. Okay, so I've mixed kind of 3 different reds and I got sort of 3 different greens. So that should probably be good, and then we can always see what we need next, but that's a good start. So I'm going to, we'll try different things. So I'm gonna just now, there it is. I'm gonna try starting with this and seeing what I can do. So, because I haven't really done flowers, but I know that these can make such good marks. I'm gonna put down a few of those poppy shapes using this tool. And the whole point, of course, is to loosen up. So if you want to be able to loosen up and still enjoy your painting. So if it's too loose for you, feel free to switch to whatever tool you want. I'm kind of just putting in some of those shapes. And it will look really good when it's done. It's just the in-between phases of these things are sometimes you gotta hang in there. So I'm just kind of putting a few of these ones that are coming down, and then as I go, I'm going to add some of the lighter red to it. But look at how those just pop from the page. And we got this one right in the center here. Use some of the lighter reds for the ones that are kind of, you got these ones that are kind of more just shapes in the distant shapes there. That's, I'm just sort of, I'm also learning as I go here with these things, because I spent most of my time on my painting journey using a brush, but then I've been just thinking of ways of loosening up, so I thought I'd try this tool, and it really causes you to loosen up, but you can also really paint quite a bit pretty fast too. So there's a bunch of these ones in the distance. So for those, you just add a little more white to your red mix, and you'll get that more muted, in the distance kind of poppy. Just sort of kind of way off in the distance there. All right, now you can see we've got all this texture beginning. Let me just zoom in so you can see. And we're going to go back now and do the same with the green. So I got to just use my little spray bottle, because this is a Stay Wet palette, by the way, and that keeps your paint drawing water from a sponge underneath. But the other one I'm using is not the same. So for that grass and everything, I'm going to go to I'm going to use my palette knife, and I'm going to add a little bit of white to kind of dull that really thick paint down a bit. I want it to sort of kind of match this, so I'm going to put in some thick brush strokes, or sorry, palette knife strokes, using, you can just see how cool that looks. And add some thicker paint there. Once you got your puddles, you can modify the colors a bit. So now you got some nice texture up in the field there, and now we're going to bring that down into the rest of our painting. So I'm going to get some of that nice thick sap, and I'm going to layer that first. So I'm going to put a lot of that down. And get a nice thick layer of that sap green, because that'll be the base for adding in some of those stems and whatnot. You can scratch away some of the underpaint, and you can take now some of that other green, and you could use the edge of your palette knife like this, and in the reference you'll see all these beautiful you know, lines of light coming to all the poppies. So just get some of those in, starting off with, I'm using the olive green color, and just kind of using my tool here, putting those marks right into that gel, and it's really a lot of texture and makes it so interesting to look at there. And as I look at this reference, I see some little flowers that are like kind of a baby blue mixed in there, so we'll have to add those for sure. Those are really nice. Sort of. And then I'll add some of the cooler greens in there. Just use the edge of your palette knife and just make some marks, you know. And then you can also switch to trying, if you have one of these, use the edge of one of these wedge tools and see what you get. Ooh, that's really nice. Okay, now before I get too carried away, I want to go and go back to, I saw those little, there's some little blue flowers, so I want to use my blue and a little bit of white, and maybe a little gray it down a little, and some more white. And you could use your palette knife just and put a few of those kind of flower shapes in there. Ooh, I like that. That's kind of fun. Okay, just a little dab will do you there. You don't want to go too crazy. And then I'll put the dark black center in a couple poppies here. I'll put a little bit there, and then you can shape that using a little gel, so it's not just, you know, a perfect circle. There's sort of little petal there. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere, I feel. I'm going to use just mist that a little and get a little bit of that light pink and sort of add a few more little shapes to the background, maybe add a few darker red. And you kind of just go with the flow, you know, whatever shapes you see, kind of put them in there. And now I want to go back and just add a little more pizzazz to the sky. So I mixed that originally with, oops, didn't add red to it. A little bit of gray, that blue gray color. Whoops, I'm making a real mess here. I have to clean that off. So let me reboot my colors for a sec and I'll get right back to you. Okay, so I've mixed up some of the background color and the gel gloss. So now that everything's, you know, looking good, we can go and add a little more texture to the sky. And then now you can decide, maybe I don't want so much of that trim showing, you know, get rid of some of it, you know, and can darken it a little more. It will dry darker too, don't forget. If you want a little more of that blue in it, you can, you know, just you go with your gut, you know what your painting needs, and just sort of go with your instincts. So I'm just sort of adding a little more texture to that and leaving it as I go. I can and then I'm going to go, and I've got some of that mountain color with some gel. Add a little more gel to it. And maybe a little more of that sky color to lighten it a little. And you can go ahead and now just loosen up the mountains a bit too. You can decide how much you want, to leave behind of the pink between the layers. And it's really kind of like, if I was a better cake decorator, I'd be a better painter at this point. But I could never make nice cakes. I've tried and just didn't work. Just make some interesting marks, go with your gut, and stuff will happen as you paint. And so now I've got this whole thing happening that's super pretty with all that texture. And the only area we don't have any texture on, and now it looks kind of funny, is this little area here. So we gotta deal with that. So let's get some of that gel sap that we had and mix a few of these greens and some of that sky color to kind of dull it down. And kind of figure it out how to, kind of mix something that will complement that little hill. Maybe add some more of this gray. Once I get this far in the painting, sadly, I forget what I did because I'm enjoying it so much. So just put a little bit of green to thicken that layer, and maybe add a little cobalt to darken it a little. But painting like this really gets your painting looking lively in a matter of minutes, And just so that doesn't bug me later, I'll take a little bit of that. Whoops, my brush is too much water. But the edge of the canvas kind of got in the way there. Okay, the only brush I use is I'll sometimes just get rid of that edge. And I'm just using the value pack canvas from Michaels, so I'm not using any fancy canvas either. Okay, so now we got everything going, a few details. Just get the edge of your palette knife, and you can pop in a few stems here and there. Just adds a little bit of that delicate intricacy, as some would call it. Well, now what you can do is just say, okay, let's see what else. Can we add anything, more? I don't want to get working on too much detail with the poppy. I really want to leave it as is. You could add a little bit of a highlight to one or two of these. You could add a little bit of cobalt blue and put one or two little dabs of like a real kind of cobaltish, you know, speck in the background, just to kind of work in with that, you know, red. There's a couple of little buds in the reference photo that are kind of coming up here. You could put a few of those in. You could go and interject some of that bright green background into some of the around the flowers, or even some of this green here, some of that grayish mountain green color, kind of interject some of that here and there. But I think the rest is up to you. You could add some white clouds. You could, you know, do a few different things to, you know, work on it. But for the sake of the demo, I'm happy with the way it turned out. You could add a few, you know, real little dabs of the bright red in there. But other than that, I think I like the way it looks and don't want to mess around any more than I already have. So I hope you give it a try, and I hope you enjoy this lesson. And if you do, don't forget to share it with a friend. And good luck with this one, and happy painting.